We know that when we're in an annuity, for the purposes of this section, we're in what's called a non-qualified annuity. A non-qualified annuity means that it is funded with after-tax dollars. So the money that you put in is your cost basis. Money that goes in is in after-tax dollars. Now, I already said you start off and you enter the pay-in period. So, and some of this is a review. Let's say you put in a single premium, because you could do that. And here you are, you started off when you were 30, and here you are at 55, and your account balance is $75,000. If you decide to take out a $10,000 partial withdrawal at age 55, partial withdrawal, we have that rule, we talked about this, it's called LIFO, last in, first out, so that 100% of the $10,000 is taxable. How? Ordinary income rates plus a 10% penalty, because this is a retirement product and I'm under age 59 and a half. So we're aware of how that works. So we get tax-deferred earnings during pay-in in exchange for ordinary income on earnings when we take it out. The pay-in period is the accumulation period, where we have accumulation units. You can put money in all at once, that's a single premium. If you're not going to annuitize right away, but are going to annuitize in the future, that's called a deferred annuity. You can have a single premium immediate annuity as well, which means you annuitize right away in the beginning. You could pay in a level premium, $100 a month, $1,000 a year, or you could put in whatever you want, a flexible premium. The insurance company doesn't care. They'll take as much or as little money as you want to give them. It doesn't matter. There's no risk for them. We know immediate annuities annuitize right away in the beginning. There is no accumulation period. So if your client has an immediate annuity, they never have accumulation units. During payout, they have annuity units. If you thought you were going to put in $1,000 a year, now you're putting in $5,000 a year, the insurance company will be more than happy to take your money. If later on you end up having to put in less, they don't care. It's very, very flexible during pay-in. We talked about when you die during pay-in, you always have a beneficiary. They are going to get the value of your account. It's true they could get the value of what you put in if it's more than the value of your account, but let's hope that the actual value of your account is greater. Amounts paid to the beneficiary are part of the annuitant's estate for estate tax purposes. That is true. Your estate when you die is everything that you owned, including your annuity. Amounts paid in excess of the annuitant's cost basis are generally taxable to the beneficiary as ordinary income. That's true as well. So unlike life insurance, which goes to your beneficiary tax-free, when you are the beneficiary of an annuity, you will owe taxes on the earnings. You just get to keep the annuitant's cost basis. You won't owe taxes on their cost basis. We know that annuities are not short-term investment vehicles. Cash surrenders, including partial withdrawals, taken under age 59 and a half are subject to a 10% early withdrawal penalty. We will waive that penalty for certain things like death, disability, divorce. Many insurance companies will also levy a surrender charge, so to encourage you to keep your money in there long term. And I briefly mentioned how oftentimes equity indexed annuities have greater surrender charges in the beginning years than a fixed or a variable product would have. Over time, the surrender charges do go away. You just have to stay in there for a while. It totally depends on the insurance company how long that is. The exchange privilege. Section 1035 of the Internal Revenue Code says that if you're in an annuity and you don't like it, you can take cash surrender out of it, not owe taxes currently, and use that money to fund a different annuity product. You maintain your original cost basis. So it's perfectly allowable under Section 1035 to take surrender out of one annuity, fund another, and not owe taxes currently. You can never take money out of an annuity and use it to fund life insurance under Section 1035. Remember, the rule says you can never better your tax position. So if you were to take cash surrender out of an annuity, you could pay taxes on the earnings, and if there was any penalty if you're under 59.5, that would be owed as well, and then use the money to fund life insurance. But you can't take a tax deferred surrender into life insurance, because life insurance benefits are tax-free to your beneficiary, and that would be bettering your position, which is, of course, never allowed. Bonus enhancements. Sometimes insurers will enhance the buyer's premium by adding additional amounts to the amount the buyer invested. Bonus annuities are often subject to higher fees and expenses and an extended surrender period. However, insurers often allow annuitants to take small withdrawals of premiums paid in or account earnings without penalty. So sometimes annuities have built into them bonus enhancements. Many annuities are purchased with periodic level premiums. And that sounds kind of like this very conservative investment philosophy that we discussed earlier, dollar cost averaging. So this idea that what's going to happen to the value of a unit over time, it's going to change. But if you always put in $100 every month, you will have an average cost per share that is less than the average price that you paid. Sales charges. Variable annuities may either be sold with a level sales charge or a contingent deferred sales charge. So it could be a front-loaded sales charge or a back-end load. How much can the sales charge be? Reasonable. When we have a variable annuity, we said that the money goes into the insurance company's separate account, and it's very similar to a mutual fund. What's the largest expense of a mutual fund? The management fee. So what do you think the largest expense of the separate account is? Exactly, it's the management fee. So the management fee is paid. It's for the investment advisor, the person responsible for managing the assets of the separate account. There are other expenses borne by the separate account, including the cost of annuitants that live too long, mortality expense, and the administrative expenses involved with operating the insurance company, including commissions paid to salespersons. Generally speaking, when we have an annuity product, we have somebody putting money in, and out of the money that they invested, the sales rep that sold it to them make their commission. So that's a very similar concept to the way that the mutual fund worked, where the sales load most of the time is not an operating expense. The only time you end up with any of the sales load being an operating expense is when they have that 12B1 fee, that asset-based fee for the distribution of the shares, which it's possible to see on a mutual fund as well as an annuity product. But generally speaking, the commission comes out of the premium. Premium taxes. All insurance companies are insurance products. They are subject to state premium taxes, which is kind of like a sales tax, but it's on insurance premiums collected. So you put the money in, you never annuitize, the money goes to your beneficiary, or you can choose to annuitize. So you can annuitize at any time. So I'll go back to this example where you put in $50,000, you were age 30. You could annuitize at 50, there's no early annuitization penalty, but I'm going to annuitize at 60. Let's say my account balance is $200,000. They look me up on the annuity table and it says that Susie's going to live to be 80. Well, it doesn't say that I'm going to live to be 80, but it says a woman today should live to be 80. So they're going to pay me my money by the time I should die. So this is called the payout period, where my annuity is valued in annuity units. If I live past 80, I'm still getting paid, but I'm getting paid someone else's money. Cool, sign me up, right? I'm getting paid someone else's money. So annuity units are what we have during the payout. All annuities pay me for life. Whether or not I have a beneficiary during payout or not depends upon what annuity payout option did I select. So the person whose annuity it is, the annuitant, has to choose how much do they like Las Vegas with their dollar amount monthly for life. So the riskiest choice is called life only. Sometimes we call it straight life or life income. Most recently, the test has called it a life contingent annuity. So what this means is that this first choice, the riskiest choice, life only, is that it's only going to pay you if you are alive, and when you die, the payments what? Stop. It has the highest risk. Thus, you will get the most bang for your buck by choosing this. It has the highest monthly payment. So you can lose the most, you can make the most by choosing life income, also known as a life contingent annuity. So one of my students said her mom had chosen this. Her adult children, they were grown-ups. Heck, this money was for the mother to live on for the rest of her life. She said, I love you to her 2 girls, but heck, really, you should have it figured out by now. She wanted the most bang for her buck. So you don't hear that a lot, that people choose life income. If you annuitize at age 60 and you die at age 62, what happens to the rest of your money? It goes to someone else, right? That's how the insurance company. Remember, with an annuity, they're betting you're going to die and you're betting you're going to live. It's the opposite of life insurance. With life insurance, you buy it because you're scared you're going to die, and they know you're going to live. So that's how they work. If that's too much risk for you, you can choose a life annuity with period certain. So this takes away some of the risk. Life annuity with period certain. So if I want, let's say I choose a 10-year period certain. If I died at 62, my beneficiary would receive the money I would have received had I lived 7 more years. But there's always some risk. The longer the period certain, the lower my monthly payment because the less risk there is. You're never guaranteeing all of your money with a life income with period certain choice. So if I had a 10-year period certain and I died at 75, I don't have a beneficiary. When did the payments stop? When I died. Yep. If you want to take away all of the risk, you can choose a refund annuity. So a refund annuity says that if you should die before you get all of your money back, in my example over this next 20 years, you have a beneficiary. So if I died at 75, my beneficiary will get the money I would have received had I lived for 5 more years. They can take the money in a lump sum, which we call a cash refund, or they can take it in installments. An installment refund, they just get paid out monthly. So cash or installment refund, life annuity, guarantees all of your money. Least risk, lowest monthly payment. The last choice is if your client is annuitizing and wants to make sure that if either him or his spouse is still alive, that they get paid for life, they want to choose, this is when there's 2 or more beneficiaries, what's called joint and survivor as a payout option. So we annuitize and the payments stop when the last spouse dies. Joint and survivor pays when the last party dies. Sometimes the payments go down after the death of the first party. It really just depends upon the contract. So I can expect you will have a few questions on the payout options that are available for people. So how do we know exactly how much money someone's going to get in their annuity payments when they annuitize? It really depends upon a lot of different factors. So to determine the amount of payout, to determine the amount of money monthly, the amount of pay out, things matter like what was the account balance, what is the interest rate, is it fixed or variable, what is your client's age, the younger they are the lower their payment's going to be because the longer they're expected to live, what is their gender. Women live longer than men, thus we get less monthly. What payout option did they select? So these are the things that go into that formula, if you will, to really determine how many annuity units will be redeemed monthly. to determine how many annuity units will be redeemed monthly. What's going to happen on a variable annuity, which is a much larger concern that we have on this test than a fixed product. Fixed products, of course, are covered on your insurance test, and there's a little bit about fixed products on this test as well, but much more of an emphasis on the securities-related products. When we annuitize during payout and we have a variable product, what do you know about the value of a unit? What's it going to do over time? It's going to change. What's it going to be tomorrow? You have no idea. So there's this, we've got to get to a place to determine we've got the number of units redeemed monthly, but how much is the first monthly payment going to be? So what we're going to do is we're going to use what's called an assumed interest rate, or I commonly call it an AIR. The AIR is an illustrative rate. It gets us to where we need to be to begin the monthly payout on a variable product. And then the actual payments are going to fluctuate depending upon the actual earnings versus the AIR. On a variable annuity, is the payment ever guaranteed? How much you're going to get monthly? No. Can we project future performance? No. We're only going to use the AIR as an illustrative rate. So I'll show you more about that in just a moment. We already know the fixed annuity has a guaranteed interest rate. So reflective of the interest rates in the economy at the time the contract was entered into. So maybe it's 3% right now. So that no matter what the general account earns, the insurance company has to pay the client 3%. In a fixed annuity, who's taking on the risk? The annuitant or the insurance company? The insurance company is, meaning that they promise to pay you 3%. The risk the client has in a fixed product we already talked about is purchasing power risk, inflationary risk. Thus, the invention of variable annuities, this hedge against inflation. Historically speaking, the stock market has at least kept pace with inflation. You can't guarantee that it will into the future, but it has at least in the past. With a variable annuity, the money goes into the separate account. There is no guaranteed rate of return. We know when you annuitize, you will get paid for life a variable amount. So we have this variable payment for a variable period of time. Because the rate of return is variable, when you have a variable annuity, the annuitant bears the risk as it's related to the product. The annuitant has the risk in a variable annuity. Variable annuities are securities. You have to give out a prospectus, of course. We said there's no guarantee in a variable annuity as to interest rate that's going to be earned, but there is two guarantees that the variable annuity can make and will make within its prospectus. There's the mortality expense guarantee. It's this idea that the annuity company promises to make payments for as long as the annuitant lives. If for any reason there's a sudden change in how long we live, they cannot pass that cost along to you. The insurance company bears the increased mortality costs. Same thing with there's an operating expense guarantee. So when determining how much they're going to use as an operating expense, that has to be listed in the prospectus. So if there was a huge uninsured loss that occurred to the insurance company's call center and they have to rebuild and it's not covered by their insurance policy, they can't pass that cost along to you. The company has promised the ceiling for expenses to be charged as it's related to operating expenses in the separate account. If the actual cost is greater, it is paid for by the insurance company. I already told you the separate account is very similar to a mutual fund. So it's like an investment company under the Investment Company Act of 1940, with the major exception being sales charges must be reasonable. When we're in pay-in a variable annuity, we have what kind of units? Just to review, during pay-in, we have accumulation units, so variable annuity. During pay-in, we have accumulation units. Accumulation accumulation units. So that if you have an immediate annuity, you have annuity units. Or when you annuitize a deferred annuity, you have annuity units. So the test likes that, these key words. So accumulation units is a key for pay in, and annuity units is a key word for pay out. Of course, on a variable annuity, that's what we're talking about. The largest expense of the separate account is the management fee. We said that already. The owners of variable annuity contracts have voting rights similar to those of mutual fund shareholders. So as a contract owner, you're entitled to vote for the board of managers and on major policy items such as investment objectives. The voting rights are extended for each accumulation unit, just like shares of a mutual fund vote. So if I'm one person with 10,000 units, I have 10,000 votes. We said that historically these are retirement products, that very commonly the investment objective for variable annuities is retirement income. So preservation of capital, long-term growth, some income. Some variable annuities will allow the client within a family of mutual funds to choose how to invest their money, and we call that a wraparound annuity. When the client's allowed to self-direct within the separate account, it's called a wraparound annuity. If you had just a normal mutual fund, we talked about how the transfer agent sends you the 1099, which tells you what your dividends and capital gain distributions were. In a variable annuity, those dividends and capital gains are always automatically reinvested in the fund. They are automatically reinvested in the fund. So they're not currently taxable in a variable annuity. They're tax deferred. Your cost basis remains whatever you've put into the variable annuity. How much can you put into a variable annuity? As much as you want. The only time we have contribution limits are on qualified plans. We're going to always assume this is a non-qualified annuity funded with after-tax dollars. If it was a qualified annuity, like a TSA, a tax-sheltered annuity, that's under Internal Revenue Code 403B, it would say so in the question. The value of a unit, be it an accumulation unit or an annuity unit, is going to vary how often? All the time, every day. So we know it's in the separate account. It's like in a mutual fund, and the market goes up and up and up and over and down and up and over and down. So that the value of the units change all the time. We know the sales charge is reasonable under SEC rules. If we're in pay-in and wanted to know the value of our account, we need to know what's the value of an accumulation unit and how many units do we own. If we're in payout, then we wanted to know the value of our account, well, same thing would apply. We need to know how many units we owned and the value of an annuity unit. So the annuity unit, very, very important. We see that when? Pay in? No, pay out, pay out. We know once you annuitize, once they look at all of those factors that go into figuring out the amount of units that will be redeemed monthly, we need to get to the very first monthly payment. So what happens is the insurance company uses this AIR. AIR stands for Assumed Interest Rate, also known as the Assumed Investment Rate. Assumed interest rate or assumed investment rate. It is an illustrative rate used to show the future growth potential of the contract. It's an illustrative rate. So it's not going to be set at 15%, it's going to be set somewhat conservatively. So we have an example within the PDF, and this is a really good thing to make sure you work through with me because you can get commonly confused on it, but you won't because you're listening to my class. But students can get confused about this. So, okay, let's stop for a second and think about a fixed annuity. In a fixed annuity, how much do you get paid every month once you annuitize? The same amount every month. Why? Because you know exactly what your balance is going to earn because it's guaranteed. So what the assumed interest rate or assumed investment rate does is it says, hey, look, if the assets, the annuity units, always earned, we're going to use an example with an AIR of 5%. If the assets in there, the annuity units in there, always earned 5% from here on out forever, your payments would stay the same, just like a fixed annuity. But how likely is that to happen? Totally unlikely. So we set this AIR. We use it to determine the amount of the first monthly payment. And then it kind of works like par on the golf course. So if you don't golf at all, which I don't golf well at all, but I grew up in a family with professional golfers, so everybody always my mother was like, you know, the best high school golfer in the state of Oregon when she was younger. I'm awful. I'm impatient and I can't hit the ball straight. But I do know how golf works, and not everybody does. So this idea that you got to get the ball in the hole in X number of shots, strokes, if you will, right? So that's going to be par. So it's like a 5 par hole for the whole course, basically, when we have an AIR of 5. So if the actual earnings are always 5%, the payment would never change. But that's not how it's going to work out, ever. So let's look at this example. So we have this AIR of 5%. This is like par on the golf course, par. And the first payment was $500. So if it always earned 5% from here on out, the payment would always stay at $500, but that's never going to be what happens. So you're going to have a question, and it's going to be like in a big paragraph form. You're going to write, slow down. You're not in a rush to take this test. You just want to pass the darn thing. Write on your scratch paper, follow it, make like a little scorecard. That's what I'm going to do. In month 1, the actual earnings were 5%. So we go 5% versus AIR, we're break even. The payment stays at $500. Month 2. So this is an annualized investment rate, but that's fine. Month 2, 7%. Yes. So 7%. Now, what happens here is it's not just this one monthly payment goes up, it's that the entire account balance earned 2% more than it needed to. So that we're plus 2, so unlike golf, being over in this example is a good thing. Being under in golf would be much better, but here being over is good. The payment goes up. The payment goes up to $520. The payment could have gone up to $700 for all I care. We just made it go up to $520. That's all. We just picked that it went up to $520. So there's no math as far as that goes at all, I promise. You do need to know if the actual earnings are more than the AIR, then the payment goes up from the month prior. Third month. The actual earnings are 6%. Don't do this. Do not go back to the month before. You take the actual earnings and you go back to par on the golf course. And then we keep track of our score from month to month to month. So for this month, we're plus 1. But for the month before, we were plus 2. So cumulatively, what are we now? Plus 3. So anytime the actual earnings are more than the AIR, then the payment goes up. Anytime the actual earnings are more than the AIR, then the payment goes up versus the month prior. Okay? Now, this next one is really, really important. In month 4, we actually earned 5%. 5%. So you might go, don't go back a month. No. Go 5 to par on the golf course, which is 5. So for the month, we're break even. But cumulatively, right, we're plus 3. So in order for the payment to stay the same as the month before, the actual earnings have to equal the AIR. That's the light bulb I need. In order for the payments to stay the same as the month before, the actual earnings have to equal the AIR, which happens to be, in this case, 5%. So the payment stayed at $530. It didn't go back to $500 because we were cumulatively plus 3. Okay? So now in the 5th month, the actual earnings are 2%. So 2% versus the AIR of 5 is minus 3. We were plus 3. So now we're back to 0, and now we're back to 500. In the 6th month, our actual earnings were 4%. So sometimes students are like, yes, that's great, it's more than 2. You don't go back. You go forward to what? The AIR of 5. So we were break even. 4 to 5 were -1. So what did the payment do? Go up or down? It went down. Okay, so let me ask you another question, a trick question. Pretend I have room over there. What if in month 7, the actual earnings were 5%? 5%. 5. No, that doesn't look like a 5. It's a 5. If the actual earnings in month 7 were 5%, what would your payment do? Go up, down, or stay the same? It would stay the same. That's the key to this. If the actual earnings are equal to the AIR, the payment stays the same as the month before. You can do it. It's just like golfing. Well, it's easier than golfing if you ask me. So it's an illustrative rate. It is not a guarantee of anything. The annuitant always receives a payment equal to the value of 1 annuity unit times the number of annuity units redeemed. So every month they redeem 100 units or 10 units or whatever units. The value of the unit varies monthly. How do we determine what the payment is? We use the AIR to get to the first payment and then we adjust it. Month to month to month to month to month. Well, of course, computer programs do this for us. We don't really have to do this, but conceptually, we have to understand it.